Hello everyone, it is I, Seth, with the bowl of carbohydrates. Woo! And today we're going to be talking about, this will be slightly worded weird, but I feel as though when you're on the internet and you look up, say, a Naruto video, like how strong is this character, how strong is that character, it's usually a type of inverse type of scaling, you know, how strong is Minato in his own verse, here's his narrative in his own verse, you know, everyone's pretty guilty of that, that's whatever, but this video, it'll be focusing more on why Itachi is a bit of a crossverse demon, and he has been a crossverse demon for a long time. Now, Itachi's never been really, say, like, a verse soloing character. You might be able to argue maybe Edo Itachi is a bit more like that, but, you know, normal Itachi is not so much, but Itachi is more like a 1v1, like, heavyweight, and that applies to even characters much more powerful than him. He doesn't really care, and this isn't something new. In fact, this has been going on since, I want to say, 2013? Like, it was before, like, Raditz versus all those characters really became a thing. Yeah, a long time ago. People used to make memes of Itachi beating the Living Tribunal. Obviously, it wouldn't happen, but Itachi even soloing his own verse, like stabbing Madara and stuff. Like, that used to be a thing. Now, obviously, there's varying degrees of believability about those things, but it kind of goes to show that this has been ingrained in a lot of people that Itachi really does have an overpowered moveset. And unlike characters like, let's say, Pain, Kakazu, Deidara, Sasori, or whoever else, really, Itachi doesn't care if his opponent is stronger than him because he can bypass it. He can bypass it multiple ways in very subtle ways. So he can basically almost off guard one-shot pretty much anyone standing in front of him, which is something that Pain, Kakazu, many of these other characters just really don't have the same tools to use. There are some other characters in Naruto, and the reason Itachi is obviously not like Hagoromo of his verse is because there's very niche counters to his abilities within his own verse, and they're aware of what his abilities do more than they would in, say, a cross verse. That being said, this has been going on since the dawn of Itachi and his abilities being showcased probably against his battle against Orochimaru, really, and whenever these data books came out explaining what his abilities are. But I think the first thing to deduce is that Itachi is a decently fast character. You know, you could argue he's anywhere between like 3 to 72 times speed of light, depending on how you calc, like maybe him blitzing around the Raikage, all the light speed statements in the data books. Maybe it can go higher, maybe it can go a little bit lower, but he's pretty conventionally fast, like let's say compared to like Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, where these characters are really like only the top of the top, maybe hit light speed, and then you kind of have to like jerk around that. Itachi is just dozens of times over that. He has a pretty decent speed scaling that lets him get into or above most shonen verses. Obviously, maybe more heavy hitters like, you know, One Piece or Bleach or Dragon Ball or whatever. He can't really reach some of those sometimes in certain arguments, although you can downplay them as well. But for the most part, most verses just aren't that fast, and then he has a bunch of Duranegs or, you know, mind haxes and things that they just cannot compute. So even his AP is just irrelevant. If he's too fast, he just wins by default in most of these shonen verses. Most fictional verses, like Game of Thrones, ain't taking down Itachi Uchiha in a fight. No one's doing that, right? Even the Avengers, a lot of those characters, really everyone just kind of falls victim 1v1. And I brought Noodles here today because he's been sort of on his war grind here with the Itachi versus Bleach stuff. Now, we're not going to get totally into, say, Itachi versus Bleach, but I think it's sort of informative and a bit educational because this is a primordial argument. Like, this is an ancient jutsu, you know, being showcased that has been very old, and obviously it's been honed a bit through the data books and more understanding of, you know, higher dimensional mind hacks and that stuff and more, you know, novel translations. But yeah, just go into detail about how you would start that kind of off, like why you think most characters just fall victim 1v1 like to Itachi.
The issue is like there's a lot of characters in fiction who have broken abilities, but not many of them can just look at someone and instantly defeat them. And that is Itachi's primary ability. I can just look at you in the eye and I could cast an infinite potency illusion into your mind. Like when people think about broken jutsu or broken abilities in general from like Jujutsu Kaisen or anything like Gojo or Sukuna, right? Like Gojo's infinite void that he can summon, right? People think that has crazy mind hacks because it puts infinite information inside your mind. And I know I keep mentioning this infinite information thing. It's because Itachi's Tsukuyomi is stated in both the novel and data book to have infinite information being put into it. It's stated in the second data book that it creates an infinite infinite-sized nightmare realm that's like injected into your brain.
His own universe even.
Yeah, he just creates a whole universe, and he's manifesting everything in it. He can control everything from space, gravity, and time itself. He can alter all of those things. That's why, like, when Kakashi's put in there for 48 hours, in the real world, only a moment passes, but inside there, it's been feeling like hell and eternity that he's being tortured, you know? So it's kind of hard to, like, just get around an ability like that. Now, if someone had, say, the mind hacks resistance to do it, sure, but when you really think about it, how many verses have like as high of a mind hack scaling chain as Naruto? Not many, you know.
Right.
It's hard to get to get around the mind hacks chain. Bleach has really good ceiling hacks chains. Like there's multiple levels of like power suppression and like ceiling and things like that.
With Ichibei and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got like conceptual abilities and the ability to name everything in creation and stuff like that. Like he's got his own hacks in his own right. Honestly, I would even say that that ability in particular is more impressive than Hagoromo's creation of all things jutsu, because even though Hagoromo can manifest things, he doesn't manipulate them on a conceptual level, whereas Ichibei does. So there are certain haxes in Bleach that are just super disgusting and strong. Now, the problem is, the best mind hacks used in the whole verse is Aizen. And Aizen's mind hacks never has like an infinite statement or anything like that. It does affect Yuha, which I'll probably get into in a minute, but a lot of the issues surrounding Aizen's mind hacks is that it's just described as affecting the five senses, which, as we all know in part 1, Jiraiya describes all genjutsu being able to do that. So I'm not saying that this is necessarily just Aizen's equal to some base skinning like Sakura could just resist his illusionary techniques or whatever. But yeah, like I generally equalize these things as well, because even though Ryatsu isn't the same as Chakra, you would agree, Seth, that combining those for the sake of discussion is very fair and should be done in a power scaling debate regardless, though.
Yeah, you know, Aizen's a complex character. I mean, maybe it works on like a spiritual sense too, who knows? But, you know, Tsukuyomi in general, not only is it an instant mind hacks, you have to have a very specific named resistance, or else you lose. Like, you can't cope. Like, well, my character is higher AP. It doesn't matter. Does he have mind hacks resistance? And that's where people's brains literally get Tsukuyomi. Like, they cannot comprehend that a character needs a new resistance to this attack. Like, they can't just have bigger muscles and resist the attack. It just doesn't work that way. You know, you might be able to make, like, a slight cope. Like, let's say, like, maybe Yamamoto's, like, in his Bankai or something, and then, like, you argue he has like this spiritual existence erasing barrier around him or something. So like maybe Tsukuyomi's chakra can't like reach him in his Bankai or something. Like maybe, but you know, it's like you guys get the idea. It's more so if Yamamoto squares up to Itachi and he looks at him, he's gonna get f***ed up. He's not gonna know it's gonna happen, and he doesn't have that resistance chain. He doesn't have those statements. That's the problem. And it is sort of like, it's like cheesing. It's like cheesing a boss in a game. That's what Itachi does. He cheeses his opponents every single time. And this also even applied with Goku back in the day. Like Saiyan Saga Goku, you think Saiyan Saga Goku's got universal mind hacks? Probably not, unless you think, you know, Saiyan Saga Goku has some outerversal scaling or something. You know, maybe he has some outerversal comprehension because of the afterlife being dimensionally transcendent, which is an exaggeration, obviously, but even Saiyan Saga Goku, Namek Saga Goku, Cell Saga Goku, why do these characters resist a universe in their brain? Why would they? You know, why would Sukuna, Toji, you know, all these characters, Luffy, why does he have that resistance? And maybe, you know, some experts of these series, and, you know, they might point out certain things. Maybe Luffy has a particular mind hacks chain that you could bring up. I doubt it. But, you know, if you could, you know, and that's the point. You need that new level of argument. You need that new deduction, or else your character loses. And it's not just like a mind hacks where your character's like, oh, damn, that hurt, damn. No, Itachi can kill you with this thing. So, like, he can literally make your entire life flash by faster than light, and then your brain will think it lived its life and then die. So, like,
let me read to you what the novel said about the Tsukuyomi. My Tsukuyomi is spiritual destruction via genjutsu. It also says in the second data book that it's spiritual destroying as well. Statements that say it also just destroys your soul itself.
Yeah.
It's stated by Kiro in the Akatsuki novel when he fights Kiro and Kodaka, these like two like poison bee brothers, kind of weird, but when he fights them, he casts the Tsukuyomi on Kiro, and Kiro said that he felt his memories and his personality washing away. So he was erasing like all of his memories, he was erasing his personality. He was basically going to turn him into like a brain dead, soulless vegetable, right? And that's what the Tsukuyomi is going to do to you. It completely like fries you. And it's not even just a universe that's getting put into your brain. It's like an infinite amount of information that is all dedicated to torturing you.
And then he manipulates it to however he needs to torment you.
Yes.
Like it's very personalized. And he can control this however he wishes, like he spares Kakashi or whatever. Not only is the Tsukuyomi just a very subtle attack, it's a very believable attack. Like it's very in character for him just to hit someone with that attack, especially if they're really strong looking or whatever. Very goofy. He uses Genjutsu right off the bat with many people.
Yes.
And now we get to the second part of it, and that's where you also can get Dura-negged by Itachi. And so he has sealing techniques, so even an immortal being can get sealed and defeated by Itachi. So he can defeat immortals, and he can defeat people stronger than him. And the Totsuka Blade can there also negate physical durability. You need something greater than physical durability. You need more like astral, spiritual, more or less physical durability statements to actually resist it. Like Goku doesn't really get statements like that until really more so like the Buu saga, maybe when they're dealing with spirits, or even like kind of in Dragon Ball Super when they're dealing with like existence erasing attacks or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that guy.
Yeah, many characters don't have non-physical durability. Like if you attack their soul, they're gonna get chopped up. Now Bleach does, because everyone in Bleach is a fucking spirit, like a Zanpakuto, chop your spirit or whatever. But most verses outside the big three, I think the big three in general has some decent spirit stuff. Think of JJK, right? In JJK, you know, Toji has the split soul katana, or, you know, Maki, and this is considered a Dura-neg weapon, and it's like, well, that's just Itachi's Totsuka Blade slashes. On average, every single thing is going to Dura-neg everything in this verse if it gets a hit on them. And so this also catches off guard a lot of characters that are just stronger than Itachi. He actually did this to defeat Nagato in his own verse. I mean, believe it or not, he just Dura-negged him and then sealed him away. Crazy that people think he's stronger than him, by the way. And then after he Dura-negs them, or he Tsukuyomis them or loops them, he can then seal them into a gourd. They're eternally drunken, incapable of like thought and consciousness or whatever, and they're sealed away forever. And then that's that. So that's the second part of his attack arsenal. I don't know if you have any more comments on his astral weapons, but I think that's sort of, you know, the overview I would explain.
Yeah, like you mentioned the Totsuka Blade. It's stated in the third data book that the Totsuka Blade is a perfect offensive weapon. Like it's the best offense in the entire data book. It's the strongest. It can cut down any enemy. It says all of these things about the Totsuka Blade. What it does to you is it pierces your soul itself and then seals it inside of the blade for all of eternity in a drunken world of illusion.
Right.
So not only is it like sealing you, it's also mind taxing you on top of it. So, and for all of time, for like an infinite amount of time, so even someone like Aizen, who just could live forever, would be sealed in it for him. Now, Aizen might have some sealing resistance, to be fair, but irregardless, like the point is that he just has like multiple Dura-neg attacks, the Tsukuyomi's Dura-neg, and that automatically just bypasses any strength difference. The real arguments always come down to speed, in my opinion. So, and to be honest, that is probably the weakest area for Itachi, but even his speed is genuinely good and downplayed because he does have like multiple faster than light feats.
Right, compared to most verses, he blitzes most of them. It's really, the big three in general is just kind of fast.
Yeah.
You know, I think in general. Most verses are not as fast as the big three in general.
Yeah, and specifically with the big three, they have pretty similar feats in a lot of ways. Like they all can like dodge like laser beams and things like that. They all can react to attacks. They have multiplier statements and things like that, right? Like the Bankai, stage mode, Luffy's second gear, right? You can just generally kind of find a consensus that they tend to be around faster than light, maybe multiple times faster than light. And Itachi, a lot of the time too, wins these fights, not even just because of speed, but because the alternate character likely wouldn't just blitz immediately, right? Some characters don't just want to necessarily run in there, guns blazing, without like getting an idea of their opponent first. So I do think that like someone like Aizen probably would sit there and watch him for a bit, you know, maybe just try and get a gauge of how he fights and things like that. So
even then, you know, Aizen is like, I think Aizen is like, you know, the most extreme example, you know, obviously because he has all the hacks. Aizen is really like, it's either him, Yuha, or Ichibei are like the crossverse like monsters. Like Ichigo's not even contention for crossverse compared to those three at all. He's completely useless compared to someone like Aizen or Yuha. So, you know, if you just threw, Itachi in front of Ichigo, hit him with Tsukuyomi, or you were to hit, like, Grimjow or many of the Espada, or, really most of, like, what the Admirals or any of these characters in One Piece, dude, even characters that are arguably stronger than Itachi are scared of his Tsukuyomi in his own verse. Like, it's just, these characters just do not have these specific resistances, especially to astral attacks, but Bleach does. Now, there is then sort of like the final pieces of the Itachi puzzle, which are sort of fail-safe techniques, where he adds another layer of hacks, where it's like, okay, maybe you can argue Gojo has some type of mind hacks resistance. I think Tsukuyomi is way greater than Infinite Void, but maybe you can, like, try to kind of wank it out, like, there's still infinite information back and forth or something. But Itachi then has another layer that you have to have resistance for. So yeah, and that would be, I think it's Izanami. I always get it confused, like left or right.
The Izanagi is the fate changing one, and Izanami is the fate sealing one.
Yeah, no, I've always, even on the swag collabs, I'd always get them backwards. Dude, I would say it, I've said it like 50 times in 50 videos. I'm just like, is it Izanami or Izanami?
Yeah, the Izanagi is the one where Danzo uses it.
Yeah, so Izanami is then the fate loop. And then the Fate Loop adds a completely different level of resistances that you would need to counter that. That's more like causality and stuff like that, which many verses do not even remotely touch upon. In Bleach, that was only touched upon when Yuha appeared, and it made him basically omnipotent, right, as an example. So why don't you go into details about some of the things that it can do, and then, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, like, reality warpy ability, like both of them. Izanagi itself is literally stated to combine illusion and reality. So it basically is like you cast a genjutsu over reality itself and alter what's happening. So that's why, like, even though Danzo did just, like, get stabbed by the arrow, he warps reality to come back to life and just make that not happen, right? So it's very similar to Yuha's ability, how he can, like, look into the future and just change reality to whichever future he sees that would benefit him, and he just alters reality to that one, right? And it's very similar how Danzo uses it. And Danzo's not even, like, a good user of it because he's not even Uchiha.
You could argue Itachi can use that as well.
Yeah, he definitely.
He should probably have both.
The fact that he knows about the Izanagi and, like, knows its entire origin story and also learned the Izanami, so it would suggest to me that he probably, learned the Izanagi as well. And that is just something Itachi would in character do anyway. So I do think he knows both the Izanagi and Izanami. The fact that he can just warp reality at the sacrifice of one of his Sharingan to save his life if he needs to is really good, because if someone uses, like, a big fail-safe jutsu, kind of like Pain Shibaku Tensei, his body kind of collapses.
Or Datara self-destruct.
Yeah, so if something like that happens and he dies, he can just revive himself. So that's useful in its own way. But the Izanami in particular is a very potent jutsu because of what it does. It's kind of similar to, like, almost like Doctor Strange type hacks, where he's able to just throw you in an infinite fate loop or an infinite time loop where you're constantly just fighting
Dormammu.
yourself. Yeah, he's literally he's literally Dormammuing him. You know what I mean? To Sage Kabuto, until he, like, concedes to not be a bad guy anymore. Like, that's what he did to him.
Even if you want to say that someone could eventually break out of it and then say, oh, well, fighting's still in their character, it leaves them completely immobile, and then Itachi can do whatever he wants with them while they're immobile. So that's another benefit to it.
You can put him in the Totsuka Blade.
But anyway, continue explaining. My bad for interrupting that.
So yeah, I think that, like, the Izanami in particular is pretty damn good because of this, like, unique fate hacks that not a lot of characters have. I mean, Yuha is one of the few characters, Ichigo maybe, or, like, some of the few characters that, like, have statements surrounding, like, fate, right? Naruto, I even saw a statement for Naruto the other day that he broke the cogs of fate, so maybe he has some, like, fate resistance.
As a fun fact, Naruto has a luck stat, implying he has minute, favorable fate manipulation.
Yeah.
But that's a weird, different, separate argument.
Yeah, I mean, we also know karma and things like that exist in Naruto, so there are just some things from, like, Buddhist ideology that are just incorporated in Naruto, so I definitely think there is some, like, fate involved. But regardless, when, like, Yuha, for instance, can just alter reality, Itachi, I can argue, can just seal fate and prevent Yuha from jumping to a new reality, because that's what he does with the Izanagi users, who also are changing reality just like Yuha. Now, people argue Yuha does it better, and he does do it better in the sense of precognition, in my opinion. I think he can see more realities than anybody. I do think that the Sharingan is also stated to have a couple statements and a couple things implying that it can manipulate time as well, though, such as, like, Madara's, like, weird game footage where, like, he rewinds time. What else? There's the second data book statement that says the Mangekyo Sharingan gazes upon the past, present, and future. Stuff like that, right? So there are certain statements that suggest it can manipulate time. I think even Danzo implies Itachi has some time manipulation. But yeah, like these abilities to like see the future and stuff are really good, and the ability to change the future into what you want is what makes it broken. And the Izanagi and Uchiha are able to do that. So they do that via the same reality warping thing, and the only difference is that he is picking the reality to bring to him. And because of that, I think that Itachi could potentially like seal off his fate manipulation. Now, that's just a possibility, right? He just has so many different variations of like fate hacks and time hacks and mind hacks and a bunch of like one-shot win conditions that just make him kind of like this demonic spaz crossverse where he can just like one-shot anybody
he's just
and
a
everybody.
cheeser, bro.
Yeah, he does so.
He's a one-shot cheese character. He's very strange.
He's got so much like Batman intelligence like feats too, where he's like thinking like multiple decades ahead and like freaking out Obito with his level of planning. You know, nearly kills him after he dies, you know, just stuff like that. After like fighting Sasuke and Orochimaru and beating them both.
Crazy people think Obito's stronger than both.
Yeah.
But that being said, you know, obviously I have my own thoughts about Ichibei or Aizen or whatever, but Itachi as well, it's just like compare him to like many, you know, One Punch Man characters. Dude, imagine Boros tries to square up to Itachi and gets Tsukuyomi. Like, he has no resistance. He can't do anything. There's literally nothing. There's no statement he can survive an astral attack. There's no statement he can survive a mind hacks. Even if Boros could blow up a star, like, he's still getting mind destroyed. Like, he's literally getting mind broken, like, by Itachi.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, 99% of characters actually just can't deal with Itachi. It's like, it's a very bizarre, specific set of circumstances that just lets him do that in many cross verses, even if it doesn't translate one-to-one in his own verse. But even in his own verse, he's, like, weirdly overpowered for, like, his actual tier of strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's something to consider, so.
Yeah, I think that you really just got to be straight up blitzing them, like, to a point that it's, like, unreasonable, or you got to have, like, some kind of, like, crazy hacks resistance to deal with him, like a more hacks character. And, you know, not to say that, like, Bleach characters necessarily lose to Itachi. I know I was kind of repping that earlier, but, like, characters like Uchiha and things like that, I was more so talking about the interactions with their hacks. Like, Uchiha and Aizen potentially have, like, you know, multiversal feats, right? Things like that. And they have, like, massively faster than light feats, too. I think Itachi does as well, but I think that, you know, it can get a little more contentious than just, oh, well, Itachi seals him or whatever.
Bro, you need, like, a Viltrumite. Like, if you wanted a Viltrumite to beat Itachi, it would have to be, like, flying from, like, the Andromeda Galaxy at, like, full speed, like, into the Leaf Village and, like, killing him through his house. Like, while he's not expecting it, and then splattering him against the wall or something. Like, so that's the only way it's gonna beat him. You know what I mean? Like, just something absolutely just stupid.
Yeah,
like,
it's gotta be fast as hell, man. Like,
yeah. Either way, though, guys, that's really kind of the base of it. You could probably make, like, a crazy video on, like, all the crazy stuff Itachi could do. But yeah, there are obviously characters that can beat Itachi in a fight. No one's saying he's, like, omnipotent. We're not, like, memeing like that. But, you know, we're just saying there's a reason people still bringing him up in all of these versus battles, despite, you know, maybe you don't see him as the strongest character in Naruto, but it's like, why are you comparing him to this guy then? You think Naruto could take that guy? It's like, no, but Itachi can. You know, and that's something crazy to also consider. Itachi can beat many people Naruto might not be able to beat as well. So anyways, guys, do hope that you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out Noodles' channel. It'll be in the description, and until next time, peace.